Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Scatter Football Transfers You May Have Missed series. Today, I'm joined by Joe, and I'm Stephen, and we're going to run through some of our favourite low-key moves from Europe's major leagues so far. Today, we're going to run through 4 players, but if we haven't talked about your favourite moves so far this summer, please drop a comment, and we'll hopefully run through it in a later video. But without further ado, Joe, who is your first player?
Yeah, my first player from the Transfers You Might Have Missed series is going to be Niklas Dorsch, who moved from Ghent in Belgium back to Germany with FC Augsburg. They've signed him on a 5-year contract, tying him down until 2026. 7 million euros. So Ghent kind of doubled their money in a year as Dorsch he left Heidenheim after he came through the youth ranks at Bayern München, earned a move to Ghent as a result of 2 good years at Heidenheim in the Zweite Bundesliga, and then this summer he's earned a move back to Bavaria with Augsburg, and it's an interesting one, but I think it's definitely deserved coming back to the Bundesliga because Dorsch was excellent at the Under-21 European Championships where Germany were the winners. He was just a very, very active defensive player, very big tackler, an outstanding distributor. I think it was at that tournament with Germany. He completed 75% of his long passes, whilst also being one of the most prolific at doing so. And the players who were grouped around him in terms of long pass volume were averaging less than 50%. So for him to be up at 75 is pretty exceptional. But yeah, in terms of his tackling as well, very active defensively. You know, this deep lying midfield player who just sits in front of the defence, very good at receiving from the centre halves and spraying out wide with diagonals. Made more tackles than any other player at under 21 euro. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing him in the Bundesliga again.
Yeah, he's a really, really fun player. He's a little bit old school in his aggressive nature, but he's also very intelligent and technically very, very classy as well. But we're going to move on. So next, I'm going to go to France, and Marseille have been making some moves, and we talked about them in a earlier podcast episode from this week, which I'll link up here. But I'm going to go with Gerson, who's the Brazilian midfielder from Flamengo, who they signed for, I believe, around 25 million euros. And he has already come to Europe in the past with Roma, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but really struggled in his time at Serie A, but he's developed immensely as a player since then. He's a real leader at Flamengo, and they've pretty much won everything there is to win during his time there. But he comes to Marseille now to work under Sampaoli, who's just arrived. And I'm expecting some really big things from him. Technically classy. He's probably a lot of players get compared to Pogba, but he's probably one of the best comps in terms of probably passing, definitely athletic qualities. Justin's a big lad, a big midfielder, uses his weight really well, but he's also quite agile. But we'll look to probably add some more goals to his game at Marseille. Hopefully they can unshackle some of that and really make him into a more damaging final third threat. But definitely one that I'm excited to watch this season. And definitely, if you want to learn more, go listen to that podcast with that Joe did with Mo Ali, or also in here, the handbook, I wrote an extensive profile on him. So if you want to go grab that, also linked up in the top right-hand corner.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Gerson in France. You know, back in Europe, obviously the experiment with him going over to Italy initially didn't work out as was intended. But you know, I was saying on that podcast that it's quite rare that you see a player come to Europe and then return to South America and then return to Europe again. You know, I think a lot of clubs view that as a risk. But the fact that Marseille have spent nigh on 25 million euros on him, that's quite an endorsement. And I think the progressive quality that he offers, the progressive nature that he has in terms of ball carrying and also progressive passing is something that Marseille have missed in the middle. So I definitely think that there's considerable upside to that move.
And it's an expensive move for Marseille, but I think when you compare the price that they paid for him compared to, for example, when Lucas Paquetá went to Milan, that was around 35 million euros. Gabigol to Inter, I believe, was around 30 million. So in the context of some of those moves of top South American players at the time when they arrived at Europe, I think 25 million euros is quite a clever deal. But we'll move on to your next player, Joe. So who have you got for us?
My second pick is Mohamed Simakan, who is gone from France with Strasbourg to RB Leipzig in Germany. Another player who's contracted till 2026, moved for around 15 million euros, which I think is a fantastic deal considering that RB Leipzig obviously lost Ibu Konate and Dayot Upamecano this summer. But even factoring in Simakan's fee, Leipzig have still made 60 million there on those in that sort of defensive trio of deals. But he's a 2000 born centre half. Spent time at Olympique de Marseille, as we just mentioned, but was released when he was around 15. Went to play for a club in the suburbs called SCR Bell, alongside Wes Fofana, who's at Leicester, interestingly enough. But then decided to leave home for good in 2017. Went to Strasbourg, came up through the levels there, and has just proved himself to be a very reliable, very mobile defensive player. Where his defensive fundamentals are spot on. Always seems to get a leg in, Simakan. I think it's one of the things which perhaps goes a little bit under the radar. We see these metrics and these statistics about how many players that have dribbled past a certain defender. Simakan is one of those where you very rarely get past him on a dribble because he always seems to get something on you, whether it's a shoulder or a leg. Very, very good in one-on-one duels, which, for somebody so young at 21 as he is, that's probably a key factor in why he's been snapped up by, one of the bigger clubs, or rather one of the more German clubs with a greater financial resource so early. His ball progression could probably do with a little bit of work, but I don't really think we'll see a massive drop-off. Leipzig are going to be one of the best teams in Germany again next season. They're going to be up at the top end of the table. And I think that the fact that Simakan's actually quite understated when it comes to getting forward, playing balls into the penalty area, carrying the ball into the penalty area from deep. I think that's something that we might see a little bit more often with a ball-dominant team.
Yeah, I agree. And he's definitely echo your sentiment on how difficult he is to beat one-on-one. He's just so strong in duels all over the field. And also the story of SC Airbell that you touched on is very interesting. The amount of players that have come out of there. So if you want to read more about them, I'd suggest go look up the story of that club. But we'll move on to the fourth player, and that is David Raum, who's currently playing at the Olympics with Germany. And me and Joe watched a fair bit of him at the under-21 Euros, where he was very, very impressive and caught our eye as a left back that loves to get forward, loves to hit the byline, get crosses in, has an absolute wand of a left foot. And Hoffenheim have managed to snag him on a free transfer from Greuther Fürth, who were promoted from the Zweite Bundesliga last season. So he'll be playing in the top flight with Hoffenheim, who I think it's a match made in heaven. They are still playing the 3-5-2 with the wing backs bombing on. And I think his left foot will be perfectly suited to being unleashed in that formation. He's seen him with Germany playing in a 4-back, and that's obviously, he still does well. But in under 21 Euros, he played with Dorsch that Joe touched on earlier, pushing into the defense, and he would bomb on with the other fullback and try to get into the final third. But the 3-5-2 is made for him to have even more freedom to get forward. And I'm expecting him to be, kind of play that same role that we've seen from Kostic and Borna Sosa in the Bundesliga with Stuttgart and Frankfurt. He hit 13 assists last season, so I'm expecting double digits potentially this year if he can get enough game time, which he probably should now that I believe Robert Skov is going to be on his way out of Hoffenheim.
Yeah, I mean, those 13 assists, I mean, you look at the variation in them as well, and you've got, I think there was one throw-in, there were about 5 or 6 crosses, which is, I mean, he's just an absolute jet at. And there was a number of passes as well, so there's good variety to how he creates. And yeah, I mean, he's a wing-back, not a full-back, I think it's probably safe to say. Because he's very much suited to a back three and playing as the wide left player in the next line of that formation. So yeah, very much looking forward to seeing Raum in the Bundesliga. because he's worked his way up to get there, and has no doubt helped Greuther Fürth to bigger things, obviously, before leaving them.
Beautiful. Well, that's all we've got time for today. That's our 4 players, but we'll be back with more, hopefully very, very shortly. In the meantime, if you want to jump on sfhandbook.com, currently selling all 10 editions of our handbook where we profile some of the best young talents up and coming in world football. But thank you very much for joining me, Joe.
No, it's been a pleasure. Cheers, Steve.